I was very excited the other day to see that Desert Octopus, the guy who's been making scans of vintage Kenner figures that I've been printing off, has actually created his own figure, this time a Huttslayer Leia or Slave Leia figure in the vintage Kenner style. As I'm sure you're probably aware, they never made a vintage figure of Leia in this outfit, and it's been one that a lot of people have made custom figures of throughout the years, so I'm very interested to see how a 3D printed version of it would work out. I printed the parts on my longer Orange 30 resin 3D printer using the ABS-like resin from Elegoo, and it took a little over 4 hours to print. So here are all the pieces printed and cleaned and cured, and just to look at these quickly, I think he did a really good job, especially with this face sculpt. He was saying that he thought it maybe was too pretty for a vintage figure, but I think it works. It's still simple enough that it can totally pass, I think, in a vintage figure, but it also could work as a more modern one as well. The only thing I would say is that the arms, as we'll see, are kind of on the thin and spindly side compared to most vintage figures' arms, which are a bit beefier, even on Leia. But anyway, we're going to try and put these together on camera. Now, I've printed this a couple of times, actually, before for, doing various things. And I once didn't have any problem putting it together. Once I had some issues with the pegs not going all the way into the body, and I'm wondering, I don't know what the problem is exactly. I decided to reprint it using different support settings and different orientations and things to see if that would help. In fact, before I start, I'm going to go in and clean this out a little bit too with a file, just to be sure that it's nice and clean, and hopefully it will work without any problem. Got here a round file that should work pretty well for that. This, as you see, the leg pegs go all the way through the body there. The arms do not, though. We'll try going through on both ends, and then maybe just clean out the arm holes a little bit. I should probably do the head too, the neck. With this kind of thing, I think it is important, I've discovered, to make sure that you do clean out all of the excess resin from these peg holes before you cure it, because if you don't do that, you're going to end up with sort of a misshapen hole. So yeah, let me blow this off. And fingers crossed, we will try and put some of these things in here. So okay, that one went in just fine. Although I think my problems have mostly been with the arms, and also the head I had some issues with at one point. See, now, there, that doesn't want to go in more than that. I don't know if I can force it in. Doesn't seem like it. I'm not sure what the issue is here. It seems like, I'm guessing that there's something inside this that is stopping it. Now, obviously, you can just cut off the pegs or, alter them and glue it on, which works okay, but I always, whenever possible, I would like to keep these functioning as action figures, so that, you want them to be articulated if they can be. Alright, well, we'll try that one again. Seems like it's often this right arm, too, that's the problem. Oh, well, you know what? That one worked. Yeah, so it just needed to be cleaned out more. Hopefully the other one is okay. Yeah, I would say that's all right. And what we have next, well, we have a couple things. Oh, crap, I forgot. Oh, dear. Yeah, I forgot to put on her little metal bikini part here, which you have to put on before you put on the legs. Now, luckily, I am pretty sure I can remove these legs without any problem. The arms, if it was the arms, it might be a bit more of an issue. Now, I will say with regard to this bikini part, I have had some issues with that as well. One thing is that I've noticed that the sides here, even though these are supposed to be solid, looking at the model, they don't print that way, and I think they're just too thin. So what I've done is take an X-Acto knife and hollow this out. It still looks fine, and, you know, that's not a big deal, but the bigger issue is that it doesn't seem to quite want to fit over this sort of torso area. I believe, trying to remember which is, I think this is the front part here. You can only just barely get it on. I've tried printing this slightly bigger, but it, you know, increasing it by 1 or 2% didn't seem to really make that much of a difference. Every time I've tried putting this on before, it has cracked in half, but, you know, you can glue it. Yep, I don't think that's going to go on. The only thing I can think of is maybe to try and sand down or file down this sharp edge here on the back. I'll try that. Because she's got a very squarish bit right here on, you know, it's basically a square here on the bottom, so that appears to be catching. Okie doke. Well, it is going on very tightly, but I don't know. There we go. And it broke, I think, didn't it? Well, no, what? It did not break. It just went over. That's excellent. Okay. So yeah, this piece is designed so that it will sort of fall down over this joint here and hide it a little bit. I think, though, that you kind of need to glue it in place right around here, or else it doesn't really sit properly. So what I'm going to do is put the legs back on. I'll show you what I mean. I mean, that's not too bad. The problem is it kind of has a tendency, unless you arrange it just so, to go cockeyed or, you know, fall down beneath there. So gluing it is maybe not a bad idea, but that's up to you, obviously. So all we have left is the head. The head has this ponytail attachment here with a peg on it, which will go in the back of her head. Hopefully I think I'm going to have to clean out that a little bit as well. Luckily, the ponytail, it really doesn't matter if you have to glue it on. It's not like you really need an articulated ponytail, although being able to kind of move it out of the way might be helpful in certain cases for posing. Let's see if that's going to fit in there. I don't think it is. I think I did not clean out that joint or that hole properly when I was curing this, unfortunately. So that's, you can see the effects of that. It just won't go in. I'm going to go ahead and glue this in a little bit after I put the head on the body. This is the peg for doing that, by the way. I left it on its supports so I wouldn't lose the thing. So I'll tell you what, let me get a flush cutter and we'll just snip that off. These are, you know, very easy to misplace if you're not careful. I will say, it looks like I may need to take sort of an X-Acto knife and go in here and carve out the inside of this peg a little bit. This is where you see me slice my finger open. Oh, no, I just ruined the peg is all. Great. Well, it just so happens I printed extras of these, so just a second. All right, I'm back, and naturally, even though I printed like 5 extra of these pegs, I could not find any of them. I don't know what I did with them. They may have gotten tossed out at some point. But it occurred to me that you don't actually need both ends of this peg to be free spinning. All you really need is one of them. So what I'm going to do is put the good end of the peg into the body, and I'm going to put a tiny bit of glue up here at the top so that the head will be attached to the top part. And then it'll still turn, and that'll work just fine, I think. I also, off camera, glued this part of the bikini to her body just to save me the trouble of having to constantly readjust it. So we should be ready, once I glue this right on there, to start the painting process. Here the figure has been primed white, and I think you can actually see the details maybe a little bit better with the white layer there. Still looks pretty good. This is just to help the paint stick and also maybe give it a little bit of a brighter under layer than with the gray. So what I'm going to do here is maybe not show every second of painting, but give you an idea of what I did. I mixed up my own flesh color here using a kind of a bronzed flesh with white together. And I usually do start with the skin on figures like this. You start with sort of the innermost layer. Helps you not to go back and accidentally paint on things that you've already finished. I'll have to say, it is challenging to paint these figures in a way that looks kind of reminiscent of the vintage style. Here I'm just doing a rough and terrible job of painting in her cloth bits there. I did have to do maybe 2 or 3 coats to get it to really cover properly. But, the hardest part is really getting clean lines. So as I was painting, I had to go back several times in some cases to kind of refine the line by painting it over with the contrasting color, the adjacent color, and try and make it a cleaner line. But I'll have to say I didn't do a fantastic job of it. As you will see in the end, it's not perfect. It's also quite challenging to get a smooth coat of paint on this using a brush and these paints that I'm using. Maybe having an airbrush or something for at least part of it would actually help out quite a bit. I've never actually used one of those, so I might try experimenting with it at some point. But right now I've got to use what I know and what I have available to me. I've often used a black or sometimes a brown undercoat for gold, but I don't think it's actually necessary, at least not in this case. So I just went straight over the white, and it seemed to work relatively well. My guess as to why they never had Leia in this outfit in the vintage line is that they just didn't want to cause any controversy. In fact, if you look at the merchandise that was made during that time period, almost nothing features her in this outfit. And, there's a handful of items at most. And even some examples of items where she should have been in this outfit, they decided to use a totally different outfit instead, which I thought was kind of funny. So, yeah. It is nice to finally get one in this style. Many of the vintage figures of Leia have her essentially with black hair. I don't really think that was going to work very well for this outfit, so I decided to just go with brown. It seems to work better for me anyway, but obviously if you paint one, you can paint it however you like. So at this point, I've got kind of all of the main colors blocked in, but they're still kind of rough looking, so I decided I would go here in particular on the legs and put kind of a dark brown between the red and the skin color, which probably would not have happened on an actual vintage figure, but I think it makes it look a little bit better, makes it more distinct there, that line. And I did some other cleanup work and stuff like that, added the trim to the boots, and so forth. So at this point we have it pretty much done except for the face. Now, there's just no way, I discovered, there's just no way that I could paint the face on screen. It's difficult for me to paint it at all, given the size and also the need to mimic the vintage style. So I'm just going to have to jump straight to the end. So here we finally have the finished figure with eyes and a little bit of pink on her mouth to kind of give it a little bit of definition. It is not a perfect paint job by any stretch of the imagination. It's been a long time since I've had to paint a figure like this, and it's not easy. But I do think it'll look quite good from a distance, in your Jabba display. And I can give you a little bit of a closer look there. I think the eyes and eyebrows came out pretty well, all things considered. Let's go ahead and bring my 3D printed Jabba out here as well, and we'll show them together. And yeah, that looks really nice, I think. I'm really happy to be able to add this to my display. You may recall, by the way, that I printed a hologram version of the vintage Jabba figure a while back for a video, and I decided while I was at it, I would go ahead and print a hologram Leia as well, or if you prefer, it could be a Force Ghost Leia. It came out really cool, I thought. Look at that. It's a really nice effect. One interesting thing I noticed when I printed this is that it's quite a bit more floppy. The joints are a lot looser than the opaque resin. This is another one of those same figures that I printed in opaque, and I can move it around like this all day and it barely moves, even though, I mean, the legs are still articulated, but they're quite tight. And this is flopping all over the place, but it does still stand up. So let's put her there. The arms are pretty tight, but for whatever reason, the legs are not. And let's turn off my lights, and then we'll turn on the light panel beneath them. And boom. It's a little washed out there, but it looks really cool in person. Let me see if I can do something about that. Yeah, that's a good idea, I think, of what it looks like. Really cool, actually. So, that is the vintage Huttslayer Leia / Slave Leia figure by Desert Octopus. If you want to get one of these for yourself, I mean, you're going to have to print it for yourself unless you can find someone to do it for you, but you can get it on cults3d.com. And I'm really quite impressed with this figure. I think it's definitely worth adding to your vintage display. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.